Hello? All right. So I'm definitely uncomfortable up here. But that's right. That's right where I'm supposed to be, right? So my clean day is December 28th, 2024. You know, I'm a big softie. I already feel it. I'm going to be crying up here. I can already see it. I just want to thank Zach from the bottom of my heart. You know, last year I came here with CCD in a program, and I sat right where Zach was, and I told Zach that I'll be up here next year. So I'm here, but I'm just grateful to have you, your time, showing me a new life that I never thought I ever deserved ever, and just leading me the way. You helped me build a relationship with God, understanding Him. You know, every time I call you, you answer. Every time I'm going through something, you always help me, man. All right? You might not answer, but you call me back within 5 minutes, all right? I love you, Zach, all right? All right, so I'm 42 years old. I came from a broken, dysfunctional family. You know, they said they believed in God, but I really didn't see it, you know. So growing up, you know, I did a lot of hunting and fishing. My parents had me when they were 16, still babies themselves. So my grandparents kind of, you know, raised me. Mom and dad kind of just dropped me off to my grandparents. I had an older brother. I kind of followed, hung around with the older crowd. Got into, you know, selling drugs with him, just following his steps. But basically, when I was younger, I did a lot of hunting and fishing with my grandfather and riding dirt bikes. Every sport I played, I was good at. Anything I put my mind to, I was good at. So my mom and dad got a divorce when I was about 8. Kind of my grandparents raising me. Kind of like my leaders weren't there for me. So it didn't really show me no responsibilities in life, what really real family was. So I really didn't have a relationship with my dad. So it was kind of hard to build a relationship with God. But I'm still learning today. There's a lot to be learned. So I got into smoke in middle school in 6th grade. I started working for this guy at the landscaping company. And that's when I started drinking alcohol, smoking weed. But I noticed something in me, like, why would this dude wait, a grown man wait until I get out of middle school to work with him? Because he couldn't find, he knew something, I had something in me that I didn't know. So through high school, you know, I still worked with him. In my early 20s, that's when I, you know, was, you know, started doing cocaine, was drinking. I started drinking in 6th grade, but started using cocaine in my early 20s. I was still working for this guy. He had went to jail, and I had ran his business under the influence of cocaine, using pills, heroin, and I did a good job at running his business under the influence of all these drugs. And so I knew I had something in me, like I was good at a lot of things, anything I put my mind to. So I ended up getting into pills in my early 20s. By 25, I was already doing heroin. I wasn't injecting it at the time. I was just snorting it, but like 7 years later, I started injecting it. And that's when I lost control of my life. Like, I always worked, I always had a car, I always, you know, took care of myself at a young age. But when I started injecting the heroin, that's when, you know, I totally got lost and uncontrolled my life. The good thing was I didn't have no kids then. So around, so from like 25 to 34, you know, I was battling the addiction with heroin, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana, anything I could get my hands on. So I had went to jail in 2016. I never got into fentanyl, but in 16, God had a plan for me to put me in jail. That was the first start of recovery, okay? I didn't get introduced to the fentanyl, but I was in there for 2.5 years. When I came home in 18, I met my kid's mother, Shannon Reeder. I was in work release when we hooked up. She was picking me up back and forth. I got released on my birthday, May 20th, 2018. So in my mind, before I'm leaving jail, I didn't want to go home. I wanted to actually try to do something different. So she said, "Why don't you go to Oxford?" So that's where I went. I didn't go home because people were getting high, you know, and it did not do me any good because I kept going back and forth. And so I went to Oxford, 2019. So I came home in 18, May 20th, and she was pregnant 3 months later in the Oxford house in Newcastle. Bill Eldrith was living in the same house as me. So that was the start of recovery. I didn't get a sponsor. I wasn't going to meetings, but I was lying to them like I was. Bill Eldrith, he kind of directed me to the steel business, and I had got a job at East Coast Records. And I went in there for the interview and told the guy, you know, I'm just coming home, and you know, I know how to weld. I just don't got, you know, I'm not certified. And he said, "We'll get you all certified." They gave me a shot. I stayed clean for a while, but basically, I wasn't working a program. I was working my program. Was not, you know, dependent on God or praying at all. Kind of like white knuckling it. I did good for a while, but then I ended up falling off. Went to 2 different jobs after that. I went from East Coast Records to Mid-Atlantic Steel to Summit Steel. So in 2022, well, 19, my son was born. 10 months later, I had my daughter was born. And so I had my son in 19, my daughter in 20. She passed away in 22. Before she passed away, she said this to me. She's like, "Look, you got to get yourself all the way together." Like, I was starting to work on myself, but then the kids had came into this world, and I'm trying to, you know, work on myself, take care of them, you know, get us into a house, getting us away from the bad life that I'm used to living. And it just wasn't working out because I was trying to do things off of my power, and it just wasn't working. But she said, "You got to get yourself all the way together. I'm not going to be here." And I'm like, "Where are you going?" You know? And she must have had thoughts that she wasn't going to be around. After that night she said it, I was at a Wawa, and I felt like God was trying to talk to me. Like, I was at Wawa, she was home with the kids, and it felt like I was looking at the sky, like, you know, and God was trying to tell me that something seriously was going to happen that I needed to get ready for. And that was it. I was going to lose her, and then I had to become mom and dad, which there was no way I could do that because I just wasn't ready. So in 22, she passed away. I was at work. I was at Summit Steel. She had overdosed. The kids were in the car. My son watched her fall, collapse outside the car. My daughter was 2, he was 3. That same day, I got a scar on my middle finger. That same day, my hand got caught, and my whole finger almost ripped off. And they put me on the ambulance and shipped me straight to Christiana. That's the same day that she passed, okay? So when I come out of surgery, they're like, you know, you lost your kid's mother. She's on the other side. So I'm like, no, you got the wrong person. We're like, oh, no, we have the right person. So they wheeled me over there. 2 surgeries. I didn't know what was going on. The last thing I remember, I was at work, and I was cutting a piece of steel, and apparently something fell on my hand, and I was shipped out of there. So they put my hand back together. I went over there. She overdosed. She was on the machine to stay alive, and I was the last person to go over there to say my respects, because everybody had already decided to pull the plug on her. So they're kind of waiting for me to get out of surgery. So I said my respects to her, and then they took me back to my room. So I had about 2 weeks, about 10 days in there. I was by myself. I was crying. You know, I was going through it. Nobody could come see me because they were home with the kids. And I had a lot of thoughts in my head, what I could have did differently, what I, you know, there's times where she said, you know, she went to get herself together, and you know, I was always working and kind of buried the kids on her, and where she really wanted to help herself, get help, but we had nobody to cover for the kids. So we lost her in October 25th, 2022. 10 days later, I come out of the hospital. I go home to see the kids. That same day, I had her service. Well, I was on probation, and I couldn't take it, and I was scared to do heroin. So I started using meth to numb the pain. From that time on, from the day I lost her until 2024, when I went to rehab, I was using meth every day, all day, because I just didn't want to deal with the pain, right? And when it was my turn to speak at the service, I was so methed out of my mind, like I don't even remember like what I said. But what I did say was disrespectful to her parents, and it wasn't like, I wish I could go back and kind of, you know, say what the right things, not the bad things. Well, that's what God has done to me. He's made me a humble man today. Then I wasn't, you know what I mean? I didn't understand why God always put me around bad person after bad person, around bad environment after bad environment, bad situation after bad situation. But today, I understand why, okay? Because what I'm doing today and the character that he has turned me into today, okay? If I didn't go through all that, I wouldn't be standing here the man I am today. You know, all that pain has a purpose, okay? All that pain. You know, I used to, you know, dwell on about her and her death and all this, but really, as I met Zach, and Zach taking me through the steps, you know, I'm battling step 4 right now, all right? All right? I'm battling step 4, but I'm working it, all right? But, you know, in the beginning, I remember step 1, we were sitting in CCD, and you're like, look, just be honest, and it will help you grieve with her and everything in your life. And a lot of people ask me, how do you seem like so happy, like, how do you deal with all that? Well, if I didn't, you know, start following God, and he's helped me, like, I'm okay with her being up there right now, because she's in a better place, and so are we. You know, it's better, you know, she was going through a lot of things I didn't understand until she passed, with mental health. Like, she had it buried in her, you know, and I had to, you know, understand all that. But in the beginning I didn't, but now I do. And God's helped me understand all that. Like, it's better that she's up there with God protecting us and me down here with the kids. We're all in a better place. And the kids are starting to, you know, ask, you know, all they know is Mommy got sick and went to heaven. And she's up there with Jesus, and she's protecting us, and Daddy's holding it down here, you know. And right now, it's only me and the kids. And you know, it's funny because my daughter, she just said this to me, and this kills me here. She's like, "Daddy, you remember when I was in your stomach?" So right now, okay. So she's little and she don't understand, but when it's time, I will explain to her. But right now, so that, yes, right now we're going with that. All right. But you know, so 2024 when I went to rehab, 23, you know, was a bad year for me. You know, I struggled, try to hotel to hotel, pushing the kids, no car, homeless, right? Man, I was in the darkest place ever, man. I burned everything down in my city and the city next to it. Every bridge I burned all the way to the ground, all right? Just imagine if the dinosaurs came back and ran through this town. That's what my life looked like, all right? There was nothing left, all right? And I really just wanted to crawl in a hole and just die. I had no support. I had no real friends. I was like by myself trying to take care of 2 kids, and I was 130 pounds, all messed up. We were hotel to hotel, but one day I missed the bus, and I was pushing the kids in the stroller. Right? I had all these bags, and these 2 people crossed paths with me. It's weird because I grew up in Old Newcastle. I used to walk through and past their house in the 40-some years of my life, and never once did I ever meet these people until it was the time of God letting that happen, okay? I mean, I used to walk right by their school, middle school, high school, all through the town. Old Newcastle ain't that big. I mean, yo, I never met these people, okay? Until that day in 2024, it was, I want to say, it was September, and I had missed the bus. They paid an Uber, and I went from Old Newcastle by St. Anthony's Club, and they paid an Uber to my hotel. That night, they showed up at my hotel unannounced. So when they went back in St. Anthony's Club, and everybody knows of me, that I was a good person. I had lost, you know, their mom. I didn't really have no family support. Like, you know, he really needs help. So they showed up, and she said, I want to help you, but I'm not giving you money. I'm not enabling you. I'm not paying another hotel fee. I'm going to take the kids to my beach house, take them shopping. When I come back Monday, I'm going to have a plan for you. And I knew what that plan was, all right? But she sapingly said that I'm not helping you, you know, pay for this hotel. You want to go to rehab? I'll set it up. So one of her best friends owns CCD, and they all had this plan. I didn't see it, okay, at all. So I'm just going with the punches. I went to Banyan for 7 weeks. She's like, listen, you can't take care of these kids. You know it. You're 130 pounds. You're sick. You need to go get some help, and I will help you get there. So she took the kids, and then the state got involved because, you know, she wasn't related to me. But in Banyan, when I got there, December 27th, 2024, I was 130 pounds. I didn't have nothing. I just wanted to die. And all these feelings that, you know, her dying came back to me. And I remember I stayed 10 days. I didn't leave my room. And the counselors down there were like, I was letting it come out, and I was crying bad, and I wouldn't stop crying. And he was like, look, you're going through some things and since in 22, you haven't processed these feelings at all. And they were coming back to me because now I was sobering up. I wasn't on methamphetamines. I wasn't on Suboxone. I was in rehab trying to work on myself and figure it out. I mean, I was crying over TV commercials, man. It was horrible, dude. All right? And that's all. And then I had this hole in my leg. So the last batch that I got from meth, it started eating a hole in my skin. And it was this big. And I felt like God was like, you know, this is the time. You don't give it up, I'm taking that leg. You know what I mean? So I was embarrassed to even show the nurses because it started to rot and stink. But today it healed up. It's all. I got a scar, but that's a battle scar. All right. All right. So I leave Banyan. 7 weeks I stayed there. I finally just surrendered. I stopped fighting, and I'm just going to listen to other people in a better position than I am. And that's when I started to actually listen to people in a better position than I was. And one of them was them two people that I call godparents, which is God had put them in my life for a reason. And they're my support to this day. But I went to Banyan, and then 7 weeks I left there, went to CCD, which is in Old Newcastle, right where I grew up, ripping and running. Right in the middle of that. How many people they say where, you know, they don't want to go back to where they were getting high at? I said, yo, I want to see what I'm made about. I'm going to put myself right in the middle of this joint. And that's what I did. I went right back to where I grew up, which was in Shawtown in Old Newcastle. And I stayed right there at CCD. And I'm glad I went there because they started, sober living was the best thing it was the first thing I did. And the best decision I ever made, because they helped me manage my own life that I couldn't manage myself. So at the time, I was only able to see the kids 1 hour a week, and I was being supervised. I had GPS on, level 3, task. I had to do parenting classes. I had to do IOP through CCD for 4 months. I couldn't work. That's all I wanted to do. I want to go to work. Then my first day at IOP, I was ready to quit and go take care of my kids. How you going to do that? Where you going to take care of them at? You know what I mean? They're all looking at me like, what? But I had to realize I had to back up. And so that's when they started helping me create a recovery for me. So that's when I met Brother Zach at Banyan. He used to come in for Bible study. And I was one of the 6 guys that was there for Bible study every time. But that's how I got to knowing Zach. And then CCD, I made him my sponsor my second day at CCD. And the third day, I was about to fire him, all right? Because, look, I just didn't like what he was coming out of his mouth, all right? I'm like, I don't know. You know, then the guy who was in the program, he was like, yo, chill, he's a good. I said, man, I don't know, man. He said, give him some time and kind of just let him do his thing. I said, are you sure? Man, I don't know if I can do this. So he pulls up one day. I think it was the second week I was there. I was sitting at the kitchen table. He's like, yeah, yo, you want to go to church? I'm like, yo, who, me? He's like, yeah. So I just said, all right, I'll go. I threw my sneakers on, and that's where he introduced me to the journey. He took me there. I was hooked for life. And, if after a little bit, he seen that I was showing up without, with him telling me. And he's like, okay, it's working. So the first month passed by, and I got a chance to get baptized. Zach was there. Wasn't sure what was going on, but I was just following my sponsor's lead. So I'm like, what do I do when I get up there? He's like, you just got to concentrate on God, and not your kids, not what's going on, not what's going on out there. Just concentrate on you and God, all right? It's a clean slate that you and God, you did a lot of bad things that way, okay? So right now is the time to take care of all that. So I went there. So Zach got on video. When I went under and I came out of that water, okay, I didn't know which way to go. I fell. They're telling me to go this way. I'm trying to go this way. But that's me coming out of the water like where I'm getting ready to head. That was the beginning of my recovery, and that set the tone in the first year of my sobriety. And I didn't even know what was going on, just like when I came out of that water. So kind of, I was serving a lot with Zach. You know, I was just kind of going off of his lead. Took me about 4 months to complete IOP, kind of created recovery that I do today in a program and a God to follow. I did all that at CCD. In the meantime, I had to deal with the state. I had to tell them, they were telling me when I could see my kids. It was only for 1 hour a week, and I had to do it in the state building. And that was punishable because the kids looked at me and said, "Daddy, why can't we just come home with you?" And I'm like, "Well, Daddy's sick right now, and Daddy's trying to get better so I can take care of you by myself, okay?" They're like, "Okay, Daddy." So that was a couple months where I was only getting 1 hour visits a week, led to me graduating CCD right on the 90 days. Like, they still talk about this today. They've really never had somebody come in and complete the program in 90 days, but there was one goal that I had set, and that was to get my kids was ripped out of my possession. And the only way I would get them back is if I, straightened out, got clean, and followed God that I need to, and do a program that I do today. So I started at CCD. I completed it right there on 90 days. I believe on 90 days, I listened to Zach all the way. There was just two things I didn't listen to him about, okay? One was a girl, but I didn't jump in it right away, okay? And we laugh about this all the time, but I should have knocked out at least 5 steps before I left out of there, because I'm on step 4 right now, and now got the kids back in my own house, like working. So basically, I went to 3 stages: rehab, sober living, and Oxford. I left Oxford February 1st. I moved into my own place. And I want to thank all my home group members, Strength and Recovery, because all y'all showed up. It was like 10 degrees that day. Zach, you guys helped me move from Oxford into my own house. That week, the following week, I got the kids back. It was a trial run. My lawyer is here today. She's in the back. She's one of the best lawyers. I had another lawyer, but this one here, man, she really stood up and made sure that I got what I deserved. So 3 weeks ago, I got my custody papers. They're under my roof now, and I'm teaching them a lot about God. There's a lot for me to be still taught about, but we continue to go to Journey every week. And my closure is this. Where's Frank at? I will make room for you.